So you're basically getting a group of computer hackers who may or may not work in the industry and sort of crowdsourcing it, combining their knowledge to figure out what's the weakness in the construction industry, what could be done better, what practice has been going on too long after it's no longer useful anymore?
That's an excellent analysis, because we had a hackathon in November, and we found it took people about an hour to discover where those problems were. People that had no familiarity with the AEC would say, wow, why do people do this? How come they don't do that? And these are things that have been known since 1972, and yet they haven't been addressed adequately by the industry itself. So an example of two areas that we're going to be addressing in this hackathon coming up is iBeacons is a technology that allows a thermostat or a smoke detector to be able to detect where you are, if you have a wristband on or a cell phone is, in a totally smoke-filled room, so a fire person could come in and find somebody that was there. I mean, there are reasons to use this that are very, very compelling. Again, respecting the security concerns that people have. Another one would just be able to control climate. The comfort of a human in a room is very, very important, and a lot of money is spent every year on thermostats and air conditioning systems and all of this. An example of what used to happen that people might not know and might have trouble believing is, in a building not so long ago, the sun is on one side and that's getting hot. The other side gets no sun and it's getting cold. In some old building designs, they would blow cold air on the hot areas and hot air on the cold areas, and then someone said, what if we just move the hot air to the cold part of the building? Why don't we just use the air that's already there rather than just using mechanical...
You mean circulate it?
Yeah. And that's where, you know, because people wonder, well, how are you going to save energy doing this? The same thing that we've been doing. And that's an example of where somebody just looked at the system and said, this is hot, this is cold, let's use the air that's already there and move it around.
One of the problems with heating a house is that sometimes if you're in one room and you want to heat that one room, you have to heat the entire house, which can be a pretty expensive proposition. Do you see architecture developing so that each room can maintain its own temperature?
Yes, and what you're talking about is zoning. And what can happen is there are these pumps and fans that are incredibly efficient, incredibly inexpensive relative to previous costs, and very, very low energy use, so that we can design something that might not have been affordable except for a large corporate facility in the homes in the future. Because they found that when I went to school, the psychometric chart, or how you figure out whether someone's comfortable or not, was just x-axis and y-axis, and it was temperature and humidity. The reality is there's 27 factors that go into whether someone is comfortable or not in that room. It has to do whether they're tall or short, how much they weigh, whether they're a man or a woman, whether they have a sweater on or not, and whether they just came in from outside. Because we've all experienced where someone comes into the room and they're uncomfortable, all of a sudden as they start fiddling with the thermostat. So being able to look at who's in the room and find out what's the right environment for them is going to be a feature in the future, as opposed to it's 72 degrees no matter who's in the room.
Now there's another thing that you've been involved in recently called Franchise for Humanity.
Oh, yeah.
What's that all about?
Yeah, this is an amazing thing. And in fact, Mei-Lin Feng, who you know, and does a lot of work in Palo Alto, organized with some other collaborators an event that was just really magnificent. We had a number of people from all over the world, all over the United States, and it's looking at I've talked to a lot of people, and the word franchise, sometimes people are thinking of like a business franchise, and the franchise actually means the right and the privilege to do something. And so what we're looking at is how people, whether it's in Silicon Valley or another area, can help every individual in the world have the same rights and privileges that we're benefiting from. And I'll give you an example of it, because it's sort of hard to come up with something. You're thinking of, well, are we going to, give fitness bands to everybody in India or something like that? There was a gentleman, Stephen Leventhal, who presented absolutely magnificent presentation. He does Fortune 500 training for executives, And he also teaches in a young woman's school in India. And he uses the same principles and sort of social technology in both instances. And so it sort of encouraged us all to think about, well, what can we do that we think is very high-tech and maybe oriented towards Silicon Valley or a industrial area that would be translatable in some way. And it was very inspirational to see him, how he has done that in his own life with his own capabilities, and it was very inspirational.
Now, it's one of the goals of this to get more people involved.
Yes.
More people involved in getting into this field of new architecture, emphasis on the people who live there, better energy, more efficient energy, whole new designs. And how do you, I understand that you're doing something at Stanford now that might help bring more people into it.
Well, I've been talking to John Barton, who's the head of the architecture program there at Stanford, and it's an amazing institution. It's an amazing organization. They have Media X, they have the D School, they have all of these resources and capabilities, as does, if we look at the larger Bay Area, and include Berkeley and San Francisco and San Jose and Santa Cruz and the different schools. We're looking at how we begin to both do horizontal collaboration, which would be across disciplines, and also vertical collaboration, which begins to incorporate mentoring and people of different ages working together. And it's not a one-way street. I mean, there are sometimes the power users are 16 years old and the beginner is in his 40s or 50s, and so we can all benefit from that kind of collaboration, the vertical collaboration that happens. And sometimes the mentoring is up and sometimes it's down as far as the age is concerned.
We only have a minute or so left. How long do you think it'll be before the average family will be able to live in one of these homes that's sustainable and energy efficient, sort of custom designed so that it's suitable for just all the people in that family?
Well, I actually visited a house in Portola Valley recently that I think is as good as the Montana EcoSmart house. It doesn't have 11 mechanical systems. I mean, it has what it has, the way they've done it. But I think it's possible today to do this. I think they've shown this happening. And I think if people are interested in it and they're interested in talking to their architect and getting them involved in pushing the boundaries of what they may be used to even, I think there's nothing to wait for, really.
Okay, great. And we're going to have to wrap on that note because we are out of time. I've been speaking with Terry Beaubois, architect. We've been talking about some of the new trends in architecture driven by modern technology. Please visit our website, www.futuretalk.net. For Future Talk, I'm Marty Wasserman. We'll see you next time.